Well, many terms that we are all kind of used to, like space, time, distance, speed, left, right, east, west. We all know about that, right? And when we talk about them in this world, in our place, we may understand them one way. And when we travel farther in the space, they all may get different meanings. Of course, same meaning, but different scale, I would say. How many of you like to make a trip to space? To space? You like to fly, right? That's kind of very limited. You need to go only just a bit up. Well, of course, we have people, they went to the space several times, came back. We have people who went to the moon, came back. We have a lot of people who are planning to go to Mars, and that's it. I don't know anybody there who wants to go further than that. But we send some probes. They travel way farther than we can imagine. Like the Voyager 1 and the Voyager 2. Voyager 1 is some 14 billion miles away from us. The Voyager 2 is some 12 billion miles away from us, traveling a speed of 34,000 to 38,000 miles per hour. And for us, that's far away from us, right? It's a big distance. And the speed is way more than we can imagine. But compared to the speed of light, that speed is not much. And we think 14 billion miles is far away, because those two probes are now in the interstellar space, away from our solar system. That's a big distance for us. But when we try to understand that in the terms of our galaxy, Milky Way, that's a short distance. If we try to understand that in our universe, the context of our universe, that may be less than an inch. The perspective changes. But in all that, the space or the speed or the distance, we use the principles or the rules of physics to understand it. And we say that we are going up. When we send a rocket, we say it goes up. Is it actually going up or down or to the side? It depends. If it is far away from the earth, there is no up or down, left or right. Again, we speak about east and west. But if you go to space, you don't have any east or west. So the terms that we use make sense to us in this present time, in this place. And they may have different meanings. And now the problem is, all those principles or rules of physical science, we try to apply to the mystery of Christ. And what happens? Make no sense. If we try to understand eternity with our rules, it may make no sense. We try to understand incarnation with our terms, it may make no sense. Like ascension, going up, if we try to understand it's just like going to the space, it makes no sense. Everything enters into a spiritual realm. The principles of spiritual realities enters into play. And that doesn't go with the principles of physical science that we are used to. We speak about the mountaintop or the cloud. In the biblical terms, the mountaintop is the place where you encounter God. And cloud is the veil or the curtain behind which you see the presence of God. Because if you see the glory of God, you are going to die. So the cloud kind of help you from it. That's how people understood the presence of God in the Old Testament times, the same as in this time too. We all know about the transfiguration of Christ, right? The transfiguration. Is there any relationship between the transfiguration and ascension? The transfiguration was actually somehow the glory of Jesus' face was revealed to a selected group of disciples, 3 of them. Ascension is the actualization of transfiguration in reality. The glorified body of Christ is made visible to them. And then he disappears, or he is gone. But when we say he is gone, is he gone? I think the more meaningful word is like the Exodus that we have in the Old Testament. Moses led the people of Israel out of the slavery from the land of Egypt. He led them to the promised land. He was the first one to walk. He walked ahead of them. And the people followed him from slavery to freedom, from Egypt to their promised land. So when we say ascension, Jesus goes back to heaven to be with his Father, means like Moses led the people out of slavery to freedom, Jesus is taking us. As the leader, he goes first, and we are following him. How do we understand this ascension? What's actually the meaning of ascension? Well, we need to begin with the incarnation of Christ to understand ascension. Incarnation means taking flesh, taking a body. Jesus, the second person of Trinity, he was the only begotten Son of God from eternity, was with the Father. Then God the Father makes this plan for us, for our salvation, and sends his Son into this world. So from that moment of God's decision to make Jesus a human being, we have Jesus, of course, that's what we celebrate as the Christmas, the incarnation of Jesus Christ as a human being who lives with us. Emmanuel. Jesus is one person with the two natures, God and human at the same time. So, God decided to be a human being to live with us. So from that moment of incarnation, God lives with us. But human and divine at the same time. And that Jesus goes through the suffering, the passion, the death, and the resurrection for us. The same person, but still two natures. And now it is time for him to go back to be with his Father. And we say ascension. Not just the divine nature of Jesus is going back. The complete person of Christ is going back. Both the divine and the human nature, one person. He is going back to heaven. That means the divine person, the human person, the one person of Christ who lived here with us is back to be with the Father. From the moment of incarnation, God began to live with us, one among us, like us. And now that God, that human is beginning to live in heaven. So from the moment of ascension, a human being begins to live in heaven. And that's the greatness of the meaning of ascension. What does that mean for you or for me? Well, because Jesus made his trip back to heaven, a human is in heaven, ascension of Jesus, that is the promise for you, for me, that one day I will be in heaven. One day you will be in heaven. Of course, that we don't call that ascension of a Joby or ascension of somebody. It's going to be assumption. Because ascension means Jesus with his own power, he goes up. Assumption of Mary means Jesus takes Mary to be with, not by her own power, but the power of Christ, she is taken up. Assumption. So for us, for every one of us, it's going to be assumption, not ascension. So Jesus is gone as our leader, first one. Does that mean he's gone forever? Gone? He is no more with us? Well, physical presence of Christ, the human physical presence of Christ is no more with us. What do we have with us now? We call it in two ways. Number one is the sacramental presence of Christ. That's what we celebrate in the Holy Eucharist. The body of Christ, the blood of Christ, again, the sacramental presence. That's the complete body of Christ. The complete person of Christ is made present in the Holy Eucharist. The sacramental presence. The number two, He is present in you, He is present in me. How? Because in the name of baptism, you became a child of God. You became a son of God, a daughter of God, an adopted son or adopted daughter of God in Jesus Christ, becoming the body of Christ, becoming a member of Christ. So Jesus is present in you. Jesus is present in every member of the church. That is His body. Your assumption, my assumption, is guaranteed upon the ascension of Christ. Because He came down for our salvation. He went back for us. His promise is that I will come back when the time comes, His second coming. So do we have to wait until our death for that? Do we have to wait until the second coming of Christ to experience our own assumption or becoming people of ascension? No. From the moment of baptism, we belong to the ascension of Christ. From that moment, we are called to follow Jesus in all senses. We are called to follow Him in His ascension as well. So we live here now as people of ascension. We live here now as people who are supposed to live in heaven when the time comes. In other words, already we are here on earth, a food in heaven, a food on earth. We belong to Him now and forever.